secret to tell all of you. No, I'm not a cross-dresser. If you guessed it, you're right. I am Colombian, but I don't have a drug problem. Alright, I'm just going to come out and say it. I play wheelchair basketball. Now, I know some of you are probably wondering, how can he play wheelchair basketball if he didn't roll in here? He walked. Well, to make a long story short, I have a herniated disc in my lower back, which qualifies me to play. So basically, I have a back of a 60-year-old, but I'm only 20. I'll be alright. Now, I've been playing wheelchair basketball for only 2.5 years, but I've been playing basketball my whole life. And in these 2.5 years that I've transitioned from playing basketball upright into a chair, I've not only learned how to play the game a different way, but also a greater appreciation for what the disabled have to offer. Now, by a show of hands here, how many of you have actually seen a wheelchair basketball game? Alright, that's what I thought. None. Okay. No, it's okay. It's alright. Because, yeah, statistics show just how underappreciated the sport really is. According to the NCAA Division I website, the attendance for the 2014 March Madness Men's Championship game topped out at 79,238 people, whereas about 500 people showed up for the National Intercollegiate Wheelchair Basketball Tournament. Yeah. Well, today we'll take a look at this problem by first rolling out some causes for why wheelchair basketball is underappreciated, and push on and talk about some harms that have come from this, and then finally we'll take a shot at how we, as a society, can help wheelchair basketball's image in the sports world. And, you know, like the number of free throws you get when you're fouled, unless you actually make the shot and one, the number of causes for why wheelchair basketball is underappreciated is 2. A lack of programs and an image problem. According to CDC.gov, last updated in May of 2014, because, you know, disabled people are always last to get updates. There are about 35.2 million adults with any type of physically functioning difficulty, which is about 15% of the population. Which means the amount of people that are able to play wheelchair basketball are about as much as a Justin Bieber fan club at a nursing home. Now, wheelchair basketball actually started when the National Wheelchair Basketball Association started after World War II. And the sport was used as an outlet for disabled veterans who came home to play outside of their physical therapy regimens. Now, since then, the sport has grown, and there are high school and youth programs all over the country, in nearly every state. Now, the problem is that these programs are sponsored by medical facilities and recreational facilities in bigger cities, which also limits the exposure to the sport. And much like my attempts with women, wheelchair basketball didn't get much better when it got to college. There are only 7 wheelchair basketball teams in the entire country at the collegiate level. 5 of these are club organizations, while 2 are actually under the umbrella of their university sports programs. Now, we as a society just basically haven't opened our eyes to the fact that there is wheelchair basketball. Now, the second cause for why wheelchair basketball is underappreciated is that it's overshadowed by able-bodied ball. Now, think about it. We can't go a day without hearing a story about a big-time NBA player or a huge D1 basketball player, collegiate basketball player. Media coverage is also very much abundant for able-bodied basketball compared to wheelchair basketball. Division I programs at able-bodied level are broadcast by ESPN, CBS Sports, and ABC on almost a daily basis. Whereas wheelchair basketball teams at the collegiate level are lucky if they get their games live streamed on their own website. Now that we've rolled through the causes of why wheelchair basketball is underappreciated, let's push on and talk about some harms that have come from this. Harms, like the number of spokes left in my wheels after my first game, are 2. A lack of recognition and the further marginalization of the disabled. Now, the opportunity for recognition is very slim when it comes to wheelchair basketball. People just think when they hear about wheelchair basketball, it's a bunch of cripples sitting around in a circle throwing a ball at hoop, hoping that it goes in. But I can tell you from personal experience, it is much more than that. Wheelchair basketball is not only a sport that takes a whole lot of athleticism, but also a great deal of intelligence, which is kind of why we haven't seen many politicians playing. But you haven't heard that from me. Now, the second reason or harm that comes from wheelchair basketball being underappreciated is that it serves to reproduce a marginalization that was used back in our grandparents' time and our parents' time even. When disabled people were looked at as an obstacle for able bodies to move out of the way, just so someone in a wheelchair could get to a table. And contemporary examples of this are shown when people tell myself and my teammates how proud they are of us getting out there and playing. Wheelchair basketball players do not want our pity, they want our respect. In a personal interview I conducted with my teammate Raymond Brown, he said when people tell us how proud they are of us of getting out there playing, it doesn't lift us up. Because we know that those people are only holding on to the fact that the disabled people never get out of the house. Now that we've rolled through the causes, pushed through the harms, now let's roll up and stop and talk about some solutions. Now, just like the number of dogs, well, the number of legs my dog Lucky has, we have 3 solutions. An attitude change, educating ourselves about the sport, and allowing more players into the game, creating exposure. Now, we as able bodies need to get out of our heads that disabled people need our help 24/7. They don't, and if they do need help, they'll ask for it. We as able bodies also can take the time out and learn more about what types of physical disabilities there are out there in the world and how they are caused, and also how people with these disabilities can live a normal life, a complete life. Also, we as able bodies can help the sport by learning more about it. Find a local team close to you, figure out their game schedule, and go to just one game. I promise you'll be very impressed. And if you can't make a local game, then check out the National Wheelchair Basketball Association website and watch a live stream game on the web. Now, the third solution is one that the National Wheelchair Basketball Association has been tossing back and forth the last couple of years, and that's letting able bodies play the sport, creating more exposure to the sport. Now, this has been a struggle to get past because people who are injured but able-bodied at one time, like myself, see it as a great way to expand the sport and get it into high schools across the country. Whereas people who were born with disabilities see it as kind of an infringement of how they play the sport. In a personal interview I conducted with wheelchair basketball player David Evjen, he said, when people talk about wheelchair basketball and letting able bodies come into the game, it's kind of like they're taking over. Just like every other time wheelchair basketball or disabled people have had anything good going for them, and able bodies try to take it over. Now, creating exposure to the sport, letting able bodies play the game would do that, allowing every high school in the country to have their own wheelchair basketball team, possibly producing more scholarship opportunities and more collegiate programs, opening up wheelchair basketball teams across the country, and maybe even professionally here, so that wheelchair basketball players don't have to go overseas to Europe to play professionally. Now, we've talked about the causes for why wheelchair basketball is underappreciated. We've also pushed through some harms that have come from this, and some touchy subjects, and also we've talked about the solutions that we as a society can do to help wheelchair basketball's image in the society and shorten the gap that is between the wheelchair community, disabled community, and the able-bodied community. It is time that we as a society take wheelchair basketball off the bench and put it into the game that is major sports.